Uncuckables.
Tim, your mic is muted.
Oh, hello.
Well,
Dave, how are you, mate?
Yeah, really good. Welcome, everybody, to the Uncuckables. I'm your host, David Hiscox. I would like to introduce our very important guest, Jarrad Searby. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me once again. So you're taking over for Tim as a new role of host of the show?
Absolutely. It's always, quite happy to have you. And welcome, Tim, to your own show.
Yes, I was so busy making sure that everything was on mute, everything was going correctly, that I forgot to unmute myself. But we're all good now. It's good to have you, Dave, on board, the editor of some other alt media website.
Yes, I've got to say it really does help my sense of self-worth just to know just how much the mainstream media fear the XYZ. They don't mention us, they don't link to us, that they do everything they can to avoid mentioning the fact that we even exist. It's got to tell you that if we're allowed to promote ourselves the way that everybody else can, I think Australian politics would change within several months. So I just can't stop loving the meme of don't mention the XYZ. It's just brilliant.
Even though they are watching, they now regularly watch this show because we know through the Josh Butler at the New Daily article that he was watching a fortnight ago when you were also on, Jarrad. You didn't even get a mention.
I think they referred to him as a COVID denier, didn't they, or something like that?
I'm happy with the no mention as far. Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So as long as I'm out of the mainstream media's mouth, that's not a worry with me at all. But actually, David, I was looking something up the other day, and I can't remember exactly what I googled, but XYZ was the second article that come up in relation to whatever the subject happened to be. So you're definitely moving up the ranks, mate. Yeah, definitely moving up the ranks a bit there. Good to see.
Nice to know we can still be found. Yeah, good.
Definitely.
The only one who is stupid enough to mention you is Devere Abramovich. I think mentioned the XYZ multiple times, and of course
we always appreciate the promotion. Yeah,
but he basically violates that rule. He can't help himself.
Sometimes you just love a platform so much that you just got to tell everybody about it. You got to shout it from the rooftops. It's really important. I do love it's something that Blair Cottrell commented on, I think, this week, and I've got to congratulate you, Tim, on it's great to see somebody of the caliber of Blair Cottrell being published on the Uncuckables as well. On the Unshackled. He was talking about how the powers that be sort of make a calculation about the types of nationalists that come along who are actually genuinely oppose the system. If they genuinely oppose the system, if they make sense, and if they're popular, that's when you actually when you're a genuine threat. So the fact that they seem to do everything they can not to mention us tells me that we're on the right track with the messaging on XYZ.
They learned a lot, the mainstream media, over the years by putting Blair to air. And I remember that his strategy was that he'd sound stupid on the phone, so they'd put him to air, and then he could show just how articulate he was.
Yeah,
and then they'd be like,
trick. Yeah.
And I was saying to Rafael Fernandez, who's one of the 99% Unite leaders, because he was asked to be on the Today Show back when all of the mainstream media was covering the COVIDiots, virus deniers, anti-maskers, and he reckons that they didn't put him to air because he made too much sense to the Today Show producer. And so I told him, no, you should have done, I didn't say it was the Blair approach, but you should have been stupid on the phone, so they put you to air.
It really is a trick. Absolutely, it's a trick.
But after basically a year of mainstream media not mentioning me at all. It's good to finally get some recognition. 3 articles in 1 week, 2 from Cam Wilson in Gizmodo, who he put out another screenshot of a Wilms Front episode later this week. So he's a bit obsessed with me. But yes, it's 3 times in 1 week. The latest by Josh Butler, and he quoted Christina Keneally calling me an extremist.
You're a threat to everything we hold dear, Tim.
It's funny how quick they choose to label us, isn't it? They label people very quickly these days.
But Christina Keneally, she calls most on the right extremist. Remember, she tried to get CPAC Australia shut down last year. Raheem Kassan banned from Australia because he made a crude joke about the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon.
He's not the first, and he certainly won't be the last. Have you?
She went on. Yeah, so getting called an extremist by Christina Keneally, that's quite common if you're to the right of Malcolm Turnbull.
Yes. Well, it's the left's approach generally to label anybody who's not actually associated with the Liberal Party, i.e. the controlled opposition, to label them as extremists. So any kind of grassroots right-wing activity, or just like any grassroots non-leftist activity, they by default describe that as extremist. That's the playing field that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and they were betting on George Christensen cucking, saying, "Oh, I disavow." He said that you can't catch extremism.
So does that mean that George Christensen is tacitly calling you an extremist, Tim?
No, he said in the article that just because you've been interviewed by somebody who's interviewed somebody who's considered extreme.
Right. I understand. Do you find yourself taking on some of Blair's views though? Like you said that his approach to like how to deal with the media is a pretty good one. Does that make you an extremist?
I don't think so. That's just general good media advice. Though I have been interviewed by Dougal Cameron from Carnage House Productions. Does that make me a Chinese Communist Party supporter and sympathizer?
Yes. According to logic.
Because apparently that's how it works. Going on Carnage House, I should catch the CCP virus in its purest form. All of a sudden want to implement a police state and put people in camps. No, wait, that's Dan Andrews.
Yeah. So again, like what we're lampooning here is just the leftist approach of vilify by association. Anybody on the right who's spoken to somebody on the right who they say is beyond the pale must then disavow if they want to remain if they're allowed to remain in the public eye. Their trick is we've just got to stop punching right. Yeah.
Though Josh Butler was back again today with an attack on George Christensen and Craig Kelly, but this was over. We've
got to say the appropriately named Josh Butler.
And this is what he looks like here. If you can see that there, he basically looks like the stereotypical lefty hipster journalist. He's actually, I think the New Daily is maybe his 4th job because he's been employed by BuzzFeed Australia, HuffPost Australia, and 10 Daily, all so 3 which don't exist anymore. Retrenched.
Retrenched.
Yeah. So the New Daily is a website that says it's powered by industry super funds, i.e. funded by union-run super funds. So he's sort of getting you could say, subsidized job.
So they call them New Daily because Green Left Weekly was taken, yeah.
Oh, People's Daily was taken by the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so discredited MPs deny mystery letter mail out peddling dangerous medicine, because a while back they wrote this letter, Craig Kelly and George Christensen, to the Chief Health Officer of Queensland, Dr. Jeanette Young, asking her to permit the permit doctors to prescribe hydroxychloroquine. And somebody decided to download this letter and just mail it to people.
Yeah, so I think we've already covered this, haven't we, Jarrad? Just the attempted hatchet job on what do you call it? The
Hydroxychloroquine.
That's it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we discussed that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Basically, there was one peer-reviewed paper that came out in the Lancet, and it tried to claim that hydroxychloroquine, whatever it is.
I'm supposed to be the mispronouncer here, Dave.
Yeah, can you help me with this?
I definitely won't help you with it, that's for sure.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. Okay, so they tried to claim that hydroxychloroquine had some negative results. So then some people did some digging into the paper. They did some digging into the organization which put the paper out, and it was a organization which had only existed for a short amount of time. They did some digging into the people who supposedly co-authored it. They were not qualified, and they looked at the claims and basically they proved that it was actual nonsense. And I don't know if they withdrew it, but it was basically a scandal. And this has actually been acknowledged on mainstream media, like it was acknowledged on the BBC, that it was actually a terrible study. So the study has basically been debunked, but the media does not talk about the fact that it's been debunked, even though the mainstream media has acknowledged that it's been debunked. They keep referring to the original study as though it hasn't been debunked. So it's kind of like they have a deniable, plausible deniability in there. Like, so if they challenge, they can say, oh yes, it's been debunked, but they keep referring to the fact that it's been debunked when it actually hasn't.
Yeah, and even these, even with these studies and stuff, I think they're all smokescreens to distract people anyway from the case that they haven't isolated the virus still, and the PSR tests don't work. So, the whole thing from the top down. So we keep looking at these other avenues, but at the end of the day, we don't even know if there is a virus. So until they can prove that, like the hydro, whatever it is, all that stuff is, I think it's ways of distracting our attention, so that we don't look at the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Now, as always, we're on the Uncuckables YouTube and DLive, and also on Entropy, the YouTube and DLive enhanced software, where you can ask us a question or send through a super chat to support the show. Given that we're using this new streaming software, I can more easily post the link into the live chat. Just going on to your point there, Jarrad, about I know that you question the virus much more, but I want to go to your point about the testing, which it's being because we have so few cases now in Victoria. What was it, 6 today? Yet we're still in Metro Melbourne under house arrest, and people in regional Victoria are still forced to wear face masks. You have to look at the daily media release from the Chief Health Officer, Cho, which says that the overall increase has been less because cases being reclassified. That basically is code for false positives. And there's been quite a few lately.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I don't know how they're flagging the false positives, because, again, without the isolation of that virus, it could be testing positive for a number of different reasons. So even I think they're all false positives, to be honest. I don't think you can actually test positive for a disease that hasn't been isolated. There's no way of testing for it. So, yeah, they're all false positives in my opinion.
And wasn't it weird that we'd had 0 deaths for a number of days and we had nobody in intensive care or on a ventilator? Then yesterday, mysteriously, 5 people died from the virus.
Yeah, that was very strange. It was all perfect timing. It was just as the pressure started to rise about ending the 5K lockdown and all these sorts of things, people start dropping dead again. So very convenient for the government indeed.
It's one of the first things I remember you saying, actually, Jarrad, in one of the first conversations we had. The figures are whatever they want them to be. they rise.
That's right.
Depending
and while people continue to test, they will continue to do so. So until people refuse to actually go for these tests in the first place, the numbers will continue to fluctuate. And until the people do something and get together, there is no way out. I don't see this ending. I don't see us going back to the freedoms we once knew without action.
Absolutely.
Well,
it's in New South Wales as well. I heard a New South Wales minister complaining that not enough people were going to get tested. It's the same sort of thing that we heard Daniel Andrews complaining about over the last few months as well.
And then they not only complain, they get angry about the fact. They try to shame you and and make you go, treat you like your father, and it's disgusting.
Get the swab jammed up your nose and down your throat, which touches your brain, can make your brain bleed, can make down your throat cough up blood. I mean, it's the most invasive test you could possibly imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine a little more invasive, but yeah.
Well, there was an episode of South Park where I think Mr. Garrison actually might have invented a bike. The device which lets you travel around anywhere without using any greenhouse gas effects, without using any greenhouse gases. The only problem is you have to ram a thing up your backside and down your throat as well. And then at the end of the episode, it turns out that you didn't actually need to have those things up.
It's a very relevant show they show, isn't it? It's amazing how
It's like they predicted the future with the COVID virus. Along those lines. Oh, sorry, I should say Chinese diversity flu, but anyway. I think the whole thing's getting beyond a joke, and I think people are going to start acting more and more, because people are waking up now that there is no COVID. We're moving into summer. The weather's beautiful. People want to get out and go to the beaches and the rivers and the lakes, and everyone's got to wear a bloody mask. It's absolutely crazy. So, but sadly to say, most people, even in Wodonga now, when I tend to do most of my shopping in Wodonga, even though I can go to Albury across the border, I choose to walk around Wodonga with no mask. So, most people are wearing them now and trying to shame you if you don't. It's changed since from the start. At the start, we were freer up here. No one really took it as that serious, but now people seem to be more involved in the masking, which to me is strange. I thought more people would be waking up and starting to, sort of ask more questions and take their masks off, but it's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing more people wearing them, which, is a little disheartening.
Well, you've got no active cases in Wodonga, but we saw with those 3 positive cases in Shepparton on Wednesday, which were linked to that truckie who also went to Kilmore. We saw all those people lined up outside the testing centres in Shepparton. You could call it Sheepleton. Or wanting to get tested to see if, and so far they've processed 500 of those tests from all those people lining up. Nobody has tested positive for the virus, and the 3 people who tested positive, they were people who experienced symptoms, but it's been nearly almost 2 weeks since that person visited Shepparton. They initially got it from their son who worked at the butcher shop in Chadstone. But because it has a 14-day period, so if only 3 people have got symptoms basically by the end of it, why does the rest of the population think that they've all got it? And they only tell people to get tested if they've been to these locations and that, yet everybody goes there.
Yeah, look, it's all just a game now. It's gone beyond the fact that we're even still listening to their rhetoric is craziness. So sorry to not be able to partake in that conversation, but that conversation I can't do anymore because I think everything they're putting out is a lie. The 3 people in Shepparton, again, we're back to the same point of there is no isolated virus. So 3 people had something. Shepparton's a dirty place. I'm sure there's plenty of flus getting around there. So yeah,
well, there's a lot of diversity up there. So they would be bringing in a lot of a lot of disease.
I used to live in Shepparton myself, so yeah. So for any Shepherdnites, it's not a dirty place, but it sort of is.
The XYZ contributor Ryan Fletcher, that's where he reigns from.
Yeah, he's around that area. Yeah, at times.
Yeah.
And he's pointed out they've actually got one of the highest levels of Sudanese community up there in the region of Victoria.
About 5 years ago, maybe going back 7, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but they actually had the largest Iraqi community outside of Iraq in Shepparton.
Wow.
So yeah, and you don't that's not something you're told every day, but that was statistics. It may have changed now, but yeah, the largest Iraqi population outside of Iraq. Yeah.
Diversity.
So there's a lot of it's definitely a diverse area.
Have you heard about that Rebel, a men's fashion shop owner in Berwick who's decided to open in defiance of Dan Andrews' lockdown? He was on Sunrise this morning. Co-host Sam Armitage defended his actions. The latest is apparently the police have told the media that he will be getting a $10,000 fine, but he hasn't received it yet. So Harry's Clothing is run by Harry's Hutchinson. He's owned the Berwick shop for 15 years, reopened on Monday because small business have got to get back to work. This is what he looks like here. Obviously, he's dressed very smartly. He said, "I'm representing a small business. I don't mean to be breaking the law, but I feel so strongly about small business. They're doing it tough. Not the only one. We've got to get back to work. The economy's got to survive." Hutchinson said a number of visits from police, but is yet to be slapped with a fine. They've been very pleasant. They've got a job to do, adding that he feels sorry for them. I can tell their eyes when they come in. They've got no interest in doing it. Hutchinson has been, he said he'd been overwhelmed with support from fellow fed up Victorians who have flocked to shop in his store. You couldn't dream of this. It's just overwhelming, the amount of support. And Smith Armitage called him a wonderful Australian. I wonder if Harry's Clothing, he sells high pants. Harry's High Pants, do you get it?
No, I don't.
Harry High Pants was a character.
Okay.
On what, Tim?
It's it hasn't washed with you, so never mind. We'll move on.
I find it intriguing. I've seen a few hit pieces on Samantha Armitage come out the last couple of days.
Well, she's a conservative. She manages still to put up with David Cockhead every day.
Well, I actually seen Koshy probably 2 weeks ago now having a go at Daniel Andrews too, and he let loose. And I don't know if it was on this show or on another one that I said, when Koshy's turning against the Premier, that's when when mainstream media is turning on him, he has to be off the rails.
Where Koshy goes, Australia goes.
Yeah.
That shows how dumb we are, what needs to be done, and more people need to follow suit. I admire what he's doing greatly, and I'm sure there could be many people lining up to help him with that $10,000 fine. If there isn't, I'm more than happy to. So I'm sure he'll get plenty of help.
Sorry, mate. It's also intriguing that he hasn't been charged with the $10,000 fine yet. They said in the article, I think.
Apparently, it's in his mailbox when he gets home tonight.
Oh, okay. Because there have also been articles coming out talking about what I think we've been talking about. A lot of people have been issued fines due to the breaching the coronavirus restrictions, but very few of them have actually been paid.
No, it's something like 5%. I'll bring up that article if you want.
Hopefully nobody pays. Yeah, I urge everybody not to pay before they do pay.
Rack up $26 million worth of unpaid fines. Yeah, that's really going to solve the state's budget issues. Premier warns will come after you. 19,000 fines have been issued. Just 845 have been paid. That equals 1.45 million. And the fines have been going down. They've been well under 100 issued per day by Victoria Police. They were up to 200 during the peak of the police state. Premier Dan Andrews said rule breakers must pay the fines, warning we'll come after you if you don't. If you want to avoid a fine, follow the rules. It's very simple, and there are many more warnings that have been issued than fines. Mr. Andrews said rules are important, and those who broke them had to pay the price for infringements. There's too much at stake here, and many of these fines, if not all of them, are the result of choices that people have made, and they are the wrong choices. They are unsafe choices. They can potentially be deadly choices. So fines are important.
What if you can't?
Yeah, that's absolute craziness. That dribble that he speaks, I don't know how anyone's buying into it. Hopefully no one pays. That's why I don't think they're fining people. It's more they know themselves that they're not going to go through. They're not going to stick when they go to court. So that's why there's less and less of them, because they're not legal. Yeah.
Well, Dan's been a bit, would you say, tense the past week at his daily press conferences because, well, look who started showing up to them. Sky News host Peta Credlin. She was there last Friday. She was there on Monday, and she was there again today. It says, well, this is written by you, David. Dan Andrews got beaten up by a girl, and you preface it by saying women belong in the home. But I will say to you, Dave, sometimes it takes a woman to do a man's job.
No, it doesn't. As I followed up, it's a sort of a sad state. It's a sad indictment on our society that a lot of men think that the best way to get a victory is to let a woman do the fighting for us.
They've all been women in that press pack who've done the fighting. Rachel Baxendale from The Australian, Alex White from the Herald Sun, Sophie Ellsworth from News Corp, and also Gabriella Power from Sky News. The men have all been beta cucks to Dan.
Absolutely, and that just backs up my argument even more. I think if we had more strong men, a little soy boy like Daniel Andrews would never have been able to get to where he is in the first place.
I agree with you in part, David. I definitely believe we need more strong men. I think that we're losing a lot of testosterone basically out of our men through diet and inactivity and stuff like that. But I also credit the women for what they do as well. And as a man who has daughters, I'm all for empowering women. So good on her. You know, like if that was my daughter, I would be a proud father. So job well done.
She certainly teared strips off him, and she's got a already, basically.
That's it. Yeah. It takes everyone working together. So there's no point limiting half our soldiers. Like, when it comes to an intellectual war, sometimes women are actually better equipped than men. Believe it.
I disagree. I think if we want to look at things like holistically, the best way to work things is for women to be at home, like raising the next generation. There are a small minority of women who can do things as well as men, but on the whole, you're going to get worse outcomes. Every now and then, like you will get an exceptional woman like Peta Credlin, but
there has been women in politics who've been without their use of their femininity or women's ability for manipulation or callousness, like Margaret Thatcher. Only a woman could get through the reforms that she wanted.
We always bring her up, and like you've got to go a few hundred years further back in history to like think of another one, like maybe someone like Queen Victoria. Who was it? Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth. Was it the one who gave the speech before the British went out and fought against the Spanish, against the Spanish Armada? Generally speaking, women in power, it does not end well. That's the point I'm making here. She's beaten up Daniel Andrews, but basically, if anybody with like intelligence and just the balls to go in and just back themselves against him could have achieved what she's achieved.
Let's go through the rest of this article. This was last Friday. The fact that a not stupid woman has finally run rings around Victorian Premier Dan Andrews during his daily gaslight show. Some people call it a waffle session, disguised as a press conference, merely indicates his own stupidity and low T. As XYZ reader Coleman has noted, keep an eye on Peta Credlin. She's a barren, middle-aged woman who regrets not having children. Well, I should add into that she's tried to have children through IVF, which was successful. She wanted to have children, but unfortunately was not able to. So I think that to refer to her, it's not through her choice that she's barren. But Coleman also says her childless angst is currently being unleashed on Dan Andrews. It's going to be great political theatre. And you also reference low-T male journalists and the fact that feminism has created an environment where when men feel that the only way to win a battle is to let a woman fight for you.
Yeah. But she beat him. And as I've sort of said in the follow-up as well, she's claimed a scalp already, because basically that line of questioning has forced Daniel Andrews and his MPs to actually release their phone records. And lo and behold, it turns out they were lying. Beautiful.
Yes, he's the department of his Premier and Cabinet. Chris Eccles is the second person in the Dan Andrews House of Cards to go. This is the cards that Liberal MP Tim Smith has been putting out. You can see Chris Eccles being crossed out there. Jenny McCarkos also being crossed out. People have accused him of dog whistling with these cards because apparently this is what the US military do with catch and kill cards. He's said that there's no connection to that. These are the other members of the House of Cards. Simon Femister, Secretary of the Department of Jobs. Martin Bakula's department. Jacinta Allen, Transport Minister and part of the COVID cabinet. Tim Pallas, or Uncle Fester as he's known, the Treasurer. Lisa Neville, Police Minister, also known as Big Fat Sister.
Well, yeah, it's the thing about this. Like, this is simply standard political tactics. If you have a leader who you want to bring down, you don't go straight to the leader first. First of all, you bring down their lieutenants. So that's what's going on at the moment. Those lieutenants are essentially his support structure, and once enough of those, once enough of those pillars are lost, then you'll be able to topple Daniel Andrews. And so that's what's going on here.
Yeah. Today she was going after how United Security got the contract so quickly. It all happened on the same day, on March 27th. And how can Martin Bakula, the Jobs Minister, not know about the $30 million contract until, July? And he's the head of the department. So she said at the beginning of the week, "You're next, Martin Bakula." And now she says tonight, "You'll be next, Lisa Neville." She's basically going through every couple of nights, "You'll be next, Mudbloods."
And she understands the strategy, because this is how.
Well, she was chief of staff to Tony Abbott. She's also a lawyer as well. She knows heaps more about how this operates than any of those journalists who've either just done a cadetship or a journalism school. Because remember, I Stand With Dan droids say that she shouldn't be there because she's not, in their view, an accredited journalist. Yeah.
And so she was Tony Abbott's chief of staff when the Labor Party systematically took down Tony Abbott. And the way they did that, obviously, they kept ridiculing him and attacking him, but they took him down the way that she's taking down Daniel Andrews. They first went after his lieutenants. I can't remember the order of how it went, but there are a whole number of ministerial resignations or demotions because of the Labor Party pressure. And eventually they got him. And so that's actually what I'm basing.
Well, it was the Liberal backbench
she's actually lived through it.
That got rid of him and replaced him with Malcolm Turnbull.
Yes,
mainly because they hated her.
They did that. What prefaced that was a systematic takedown of Tony Abbott's lieutenants and certain ministers in his government. And so Peta Credlin's seen how that operated, and she's applying the same tactic here.
And she said if the Board of Inquiry, which doesn't have the powers of a Royal Commission, it can't subpoena documents or subpoena witnesses, and a lot of the documents names are redacted, especially the WhatsApp group when where they decide that Unified Security will get the contract. So And she said basically, because the Board of Inquiry didn't ask for the phone records until she asked Daniel Andrews about it, and she's basically like, if the Board of Inquiry isn't going to do its job for how much is it costing? It's nearly, what is it, 6 million now? She said, I'll do it for free.
And all it takes is one female journalist. It's interesting, Jarrad, if we bring this back to what we we're talking about before, but this is an example of like the layers of lies that we have to deal with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What we're talking about here is an inquiry into the way that the government has lied about the way that it looked after the quarantine. Like, it was offered federal assistance of the army to keep people who are supposedly infected with this virus in quarantine.
And
they didn't. So it's like we've got one level of lie here, because like when we look at what's actually going on with coronavirus around the world, it could be a mild bug. It could be like basically like tricky ways to, or it's definitely tricky ways to fake the numbers of deaths. But what we're looking at is a coordinated globalist lockdown of the entire world. And so when we think of like globalist tactics, like they create issues which are side issues for people to squawk about and jump up and down about, but that's generally a distraction from the real from their real aims.
Yeah, 100%.
That's kind of, and that's where we always try to drive to on these live streams. Like, okay, where's the real aims?
This whole situation was unfathomable 12 months ago. If someone had said, by the end, 2020 would have been a year of lockdown and global pandemic, it's a TV show, and it's something that they've been preparing us for a long time through these TV shows and stuff like that. So everyone's willing to go into a zombie apocalypse, or, everyone's excited about that. They've prepared people for this coming, whatever it's going to be. People are sitting ducks at the moment. People assuming, people don't understand that, like, just the power alone collapsing. If the power collapsed, for instance, 90% of people would die in the first year. People are unprepared. And we have to remember that TV was created as a propaganda tool. And that is all it's ever been throughout the history of Hollywood. So everything we are shown is fake. So I'm glad you explained to me what you were talking about, because honestly, I had no idea, because I'm so far tuned out of the news and what the mainstream says, because everything I see is a lie and it's a waste of time. We come to this generation now where we don't live our lives. I had someone say to me the other week, they play a game and on their game they plant crops and harvest vegetables and stuff like that. I said, mate, I've got a veggie garden at the back. Come out and fucking harvest some veggies. Like, we need to get back to reality and away from these screens. And I mean, I use this platform obviously now to get what I am learning across to other people, because it needs to be shared. We all need to learn this information. But apart from that, I've spent very little time in front of a screen or on social media, because I don't see it benefiting us in any way. So, yeah, like you said, the whole thing is a lie. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day that was very, I'm not saying I believe either way, but one theory was, and one thing they were explaining is how AIDS was never a pandemic. They were saying that AIDS was manufactured. When people are pregnant, at one stage of pregnancy, most people are likely to test positive to an AIDS test. One trimester, there's something in the system that will set off an AIDS test. So what they've done in Africa is they weren't getting funding for malnutrition or anything like that. They're getting funding for AIDS. So they went to all these pregnancy clinics and tested all these pregnant women for AIDS. And they took the statistics from these pregnancy clinics and used them as a baseline for the community at large. Because 80% of women might have tested positive in this clinic, and they said that was the community. So they manufactured these numbers. Again, it was construction of numbers and tests and this and that to build up something that seemed to be a lot bigger than it was. And in San Francisco, at that time, poppers were going off and antibiotics, and these people who were claiming, that this could have been another sort of smokescreen were saying that, a mix of that poppers, that, what is it, the stuff they sniff.
It's some sort of
nitric gas or something.
Sex drug, which is supposed to have a more pleasurable sexual experience. Apparently,
well, apparently, high doses of that mixed in with antibiotics can, cause like a malnutrition effect. And malnutrition is the same. It's the same as AIDS. So see someone dying of AIDS and you see someone dying of malnutrition, and they look very similar. So, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it shows that we have to question everything we are told, from, whether it be that the world's a bloody oval or a pear shape or whatever it is. We need to ask questions. And with what's going on at the moment and with COVID, we need to ask questions, and we need these questions answered. So yeah.
Fantastic. We finally brought up flat Earth on the Uncuckables.
It was only a matter of time, mate. It was only a matter of time.
What did the Flat Earth Society say that we have members around the globe?
Well, it's not even a globe anymore by science. If you actually check, NASA now says it's a pear shape. So apparently at the top and the bottom, it's not as the equator in the middle is thinner or something. So we're not actually a ball anymore. We're actually more of a pear-shaped, according to science. There's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of questions.
If we are a pear shape, then that still proves that the world is not flat, and that if you go too far, you're going to fall over the edge, because that was the old medieval absurdist argument.
I think now it's the ice wall. I think now we're on the ice wall path. That's what the modern day flat earthers are thinking. So me, I don't know either. I know very little about very little. So I'm here to learn. I listen to every opinion from every source, and everyone could be right. Anyone could be right. Anyone could be wrong. And when people tell me they're definitely right, I get that makes me stand back and ask more questions. That's just me, myself. I like to ask questions. I don't know what's going on, so I don't pretend I do.
You spoke about how, a lot of people have speculated that the virus is a globalist reset device, though there was a twist in that this week with the World Health Organization saying, no, we only support lockdowns basically to flatten the curve and to prepare healthcare system, which we were sold back in March. And what is it? Our Chief Health Officer, Dr. Brett Sutton, said, I don't think they were talking about Victoria. Apparently Victoria is not part of the world. It's hell, maybe. That's what it is. And he also claimed that Victoria's battle against the coronavirus is one of the hardest. Poor you, Brett.
Well, up until this point, I think Victorians are partially to blame for their demise. The fact that they sit in their homes and wear these masks and do absolutely nothing about it is the reason. Well,
that's you're referring to the lockdown, not the fight against the virus.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
But he was claiming that our battle against the virus is one of the hardest, and apparently, because what is that? We're not going to reach that 5 daily case target over 14 days and 5 mystery cases. I've noticed that the mystery cases, they've gone up from 10 to 15 this week. So even though, we've got 175 active cases now, our mystery cases have gone up to 15, which is the real cause for concern, we're told by Brett Sutton and his deputy, Alan Chang.
Yeah, that's why I don't see a way out of this lockdown. I don't see them ending it. With they're not going to. They're just going to keep ticking over these numbers as they please. And as long as people keep testing, they'll keep testing positive. Did you know a bloody pawpaw tested positive? They tested
I heard about that.
That's a fruit. A fruit. They sent in a test that was brand fucking new, and that tested positive. Like, this is absolute shambles and crazy, and people just write that off. Like, that is ludicrous. Absolute ludicrous. A test that had never been used tested positive. This is, it's absolutely crazy.
Don't forget they're testing the shit sewage now for,
of course they are.
Excrements of the coronavirus. But so far, they found some traces at Anglesey on the Surf Coast. So far it didn't lead to an outbreak. I was sort of like, what's... I haven't heard of any like they found traces of it, but it hasn't infected the community. I don't know if there's some sort of literal shitstorm in the town where the shit goes everywhere.
Shit's gonna hit the fan. But I don't know if you remember or not. But when COVID first started coming onto the scene, they were saying that on the cruise ships, people were catching it through the sewage system, because they were saying that was the only way they were thinking. So it was either coming through the sewage system or through the air conditioning. But one of the theories was that they were spreading it through the sewage. So that was one of the theories, how it was spreading through the hotels and stuff as well.
Yeah, the air conditioning argument has more, I would say, more merit to it, because it has been proven that viruses, because they use a reverse cycle and they can get quite clogged, and that's why I think maybe we all got the flu, Dave, last winter. Me, and Maddie through the reverse cycle in the former Unshackled studio. What was that? The theory that we had at the time, maybe someone was pouring virus into the reverse cycle, and that's how we all got sick.
Yeah, that was actually one of the worst viruses I've ever had. That one.
Yeah, me as well. Like were you feverish like me, where I was like becoming delirious?
Yeah, like I remember going through several stages of the fever. Like the first stage was when I thought I was dying. The next stage was when I was wishing I was dying, and then the third stage was I was actually dying. But I lived.
Yeah, we all lived, and our internal organs didn't get crippled either.
Yeah, that's it. So just rewinding a little bit, like, so we were talking about the fact that the WHO has sort of walked back on like what it's saying about lockdowns. We've done research into the fact that the head of the WHO is actually China's man. He's got into that position quite suspiciously. The one that we also need to look at is the World Bank, because the president of Belarus has basically come out and said that the World Bank basically bribed his country to lock down the country and lock down the economy and introduce the sort of stuff that we're seeing like here in Victoria and is being introduced in Europe. But he refused, and so now there's a colour revolution going on in Belarus. Intriguingly, the World Bank has recently praised Daniel Andrews' response to the so-called coronavirus, and there's some suspicious stuff coming out about the chief health officer. So this was on Twitter. Most of us are not aware that the esteemed Professor Brett Sutton is a public health master's graduate from James Cook University. Brett Sutton does not have a PhD for an academic or clinician with an international reputation in his field. Professor Sutton has a relatively poor and frankly non-competitive track record in academic circles. In the last 5 years, for example, he's been the first author on only 3 research papers, one of each in the fields of climate change, palliative care, and gonorrhea. And so it keeps going here. It is interesting that in March 2020, just prior to the lockdown, the first one, Dr. Brett Sutton was handed an adjunct clinical professor appointment with the Department of Epidemiology and Preventative Medicine by the Vice Chancellor of Monash University, a level E appointment that can only be endorsed by the VC. Level E is the highest level that can be obtained, typically reserved for appointees who have established an international reputation in the area. Evidently, Professor Sutton met eligibility criteria for a level E academic appointment without writing more than 1 research paper within the same field of research. His profile is suspiciously scarce of any detail, i.e. empty. So it's, if we can go with the theory that basically they pick certain people to be figureheads, they're not necessarily based on their actual their qualifications. They're picked as political appointees, essentially. That's what that thing is basically driving towards.
Yeah, and that's all. Everyone's pointing their fingers at Daniel Andrews at the moment, but there's no way Daniel Andrews is calling the shots here. He's definitely the puppet. There's definitely someone pulling the strings.
Well, that's one theory. I just think he's a megalomaniac who just wants to be the decider and control freak. But on the
those two theories are mutually exclusive. He can be both. Like this can be suiting his own ends while he's also doing the bidding of others.
Yeah.
With the WHO basically saying that we don't advocate lockdowns, a theory that probably has popped into a lot of people's minds is because Dr. Ted, as we call him, Tedros, obviously there because of China. You wonder whether China's told them, okay, the West has economically self-destructed now enough from the lockdowns. That's time for us to move in now, and to you to say that lockdowns need to end.
Well, let's keep our tinfoil hats on. So this week, Justin Trudeau has indicated that Canada is allowing for the contingency that there could be a contested election in the United States and there could be a period of instability. What's also interesting is that it turns out that China has made a deal with Canada, or Canada has made a deal with China, that allows China to permanently station Republic of China troops on Canadian soil.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, you can like join dots, put the tinfoil hat on, do a bit of speculation. You can see some Chinese peacekeepers going in at some stage, maybe down the west coast. You never know.
Did you hear today that Daniel Andrews' office in Noble Park was vandalised again? It had "Sack Dan" written on the door and on the side as well. This follows the.
From what I understand, it's a mostly peaceful graffiti attack. Yes.
Well, they've launched a criminal investigation. Victoria Police. They've narrowed their field down to 6 million suspects. Because I assume it has, I think that's a security camera up there. Obviously, to comply with the COVID restrictions, the perpetrators would have been wearing face coverings. This was the previous vandalism on September 25. So it says tyrant, liar, CCP, lackey, scum.
I'll tell you what, if Andy pays him a visit, we'll know about it, but won't we?
It wasn't Andy Nolch because
no, he didn't leave his. He didn't leave his signature. We'll know if Andy goes there though.
Now, finally, the lawsuits are beginning to pile up against Dan Andrews, and one that was only announced at the beginning of this week by hoteler Julian Gurner against Melbourne's lockdown. He wanted to take it all the way to the High Court, and the High Court has expedited it. There's going to be a directions hearing tomorrow. He owns a hotel at Sorrento on the Mornington Peninsula, and this follows the challenge to the curfew, which Dan capitulated pretty quickly. As soon as the curfew trial was about to begin in the Supreme Court, he dropped the curfew. So basically, Dan folds pretty quickly, especially if you compare him to, well, the Wicked Witch of the Midwest, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who just decides to ignore her own Supreme Court.
Yeah, but it's good to see. It's good to see the High Court's taking it.
Shall we go through? You wrote an article on Gretchen last week because the FBI unfoiled a plot to kidnap her and try her for treason, and it was written in typical XYZ style.
I had a lot of fun. It was inspired by you as well, Tim, because you were referring to her as a wicked witch.
Yeah, FBI foils brave attempt to try witch Michigan governor for treason. I'll get you silly protesters and your lockdown and your freedoms too.
I've got to do a little preamble on this. I'm almost a little bit disappointed that it turns out that there seems to be strong evidence that several of these guys who the media portrayed as being far right are actually anarchists.
Yeah, because anarchist militia.
Yes, and it also turns out that it's basically the FBI did the typical Fed approach of like encouraging them to do something violent and then arresting them when a few people nodded their heads to it. But yes, please read on. It's I had a lot of fun.
Where'd you get this photo from? Because she already looks much like a witch, so you just had to add the green. Where'd you get it from?
Just found it on some public domain thing, like usual.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of these out there.
Yeah, we're not the first people to sort of make the connection.
Yeah. Naturally, she has decided to implement a statewide lockdown under the pretext of protecting citizens from the virus, despite being informed by the Michigan Supreme Court this was illegal. And of course, you had to go on against her because she's a woman. She did this because she's an illogical woman. She's a triggered, hysterical woman, I would say, who thinks illogically because she is a woman. She's also a witch and traitor to the American people. Yeah. Understandably, some American, they weren't patriots, as it's been established.
It's I haven't bothered to follow it up too much, but it's been taken.
Gretchen can be seen in the picture below. This is what she actually looks like. She looks like. Yeah, she actually looks like she's one of the Charm sisters there, like Alyssa Milano there. So yeah, she does look like a witch.
Yeah, I'll pay that.
Yeah, Gretchen can be seen in the picture below, conducting some kind of weird voodoo witchcraft on the poor Aryan woman behind her, forcing her to make an embarrassing hand signal and pull funny faces.
I love it. I never tire of hearing you reading out my articles.
The XYZ understands the mission. Had the mission been successful, they plan to punish Gretchen by throwing a bucket of water at her. The XYZ obtained exclusive footage, an artist impression of how that must have looked, which I won't play it for, but that's the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz. I wonder.
Can you just get back to the article, because I put in a little Easter egg in there as well, because I actually. One of my favorite tricks is to actually put in in the quotes that I cut and paste. If you go a couple of paragraphs above.
This a bold one.
I know a couple of paragraphs above that picture of Gretchen doing the voodoo. If you scroll up.
Where am I looking?
No, further up, above that picture. Hang on. Okay, so the alleged hang on.
The alleged scheme involves months of
next one, agent Trump, special agent.
Yeah, Special Agent Trask stated that the arrested men claim a wizard from an Emerald City tasked them with their important mission, and they all they wanted was to go back to Kansas.
Yeah, I love just pretending that I've done a genuine cut and paste and putting in my own quotes as well.
Yeah, but if I just go to the top here, it's not even poorly labeled satire, even though you've mixed through.
Well, I figured people should be able to figure out what's going on.
No. As we know with XYZ satire, people think it's 100% true. I mean, they already think that the Calder Raceway track is being turned into Auschwitz.
Yeah, well, it would not surprise me if it comes out that Gretchen actually does consider herself a Wiccan or something like that. Seriously, the Supreme Court of her own state has said, no, you can't actually do this law, but she just goes ahead with it anyway. That's just plain evil.
There could also be, you could have included in that article, there's also been a song written about Gretchen Cartman's song, Biggest Bitch in the Whole Wide World.
We'll reserve that for the witches like Hillary and that sort of stuff, and maybe Meghan Markle.
But yes, that was the news late last week. Let's go to New South Wales now, where the Premier is in trouble for screwing one guy, though Dan Andrews has screwed 6 million Victorians. But it was quite explosive on Monday when she revealed that she'd been having an intimate relationship with basically the most bent MP in the New South Wales Parliament in recent years, former Liberal MP Darryl Maguire. And I'll go to what you wrote about it, Dave, because of course
I've been going to town this week. Yeah.
It is a well-established fact that the only reason Gladys baby killer, because she she legalized abortion in the state, Berejiklian passed legislation in New South Wales laying abortions up until the moment of birth, was to obtain easier access to dead baby carcasses to force her to feast on every full moon. She fulfills this dark magic ritual to prevent her nose from growing any larger, because the weight of imbalance cause would inflict irreparable damage to her spine. Yes, we do know that she has a large nose.
Okay, so where I'm going with this, like I'll give some context. So I didn't discuss this in the article, but what we've seen this week is people saying, "Oh, look, cut the poor woman a break. Like she made a bad decision." Everybody makes it sort of talking about her as though she's a naive schoolgirl.
Like all girls fall for a bad guy occasionally.
Yeah, but like, so on the one hand, we're supposed to like smash the glass ceiling for women, but then on the other hand, if they make a poor decision, all women fall for the bad guy. So there's a double standard going there. So that's the reason you see me sort of write this sort of outrageous sort of stuff. Like I want to sort of smash that air of give the woman a chance. It's like, no, like she's pushed forward some of the most extreme abortion laws in the Western world, and she's supposed to be a conservative. And she's been going out with a crook, and she kept going out with the crook after he'd already been found guilty. Yeah.
And she has never been married or had any children. She's 50 years old, so it's basically past the time when she can have children. I think what shocked most people is that they thought that she was just married to the job or to the people of New South Wales. Yet, she actually has a personal life, and that she kept secret, because this was a 5-year relationship from 2015 to 2020. Darryl Maguire was sacked from the ministry, resigned from Parliament in 2018. Yet she continued with the relationship for another 2 years until August 2020.
It's another thing I didn't mention in the article. I think there are a lot of open secrets in the political world.
So yes.
I find it intriguing that this information has come out now. And as I did mention in the article, it comes in very handy for the Labor Party, because it takes some pressure off Daniel Andrews. It's intriguing that this information about Berejiklian, and she's been praised for the way that New South Wales has handled the coronavirus.
Well, it's open for business, and you don't have to wear masks.
Well, there you go. So it's very intriguing that this information has come out on her just as the pressure was really being ramped up on Daniel Andrews. I do find that intriguing. I don't think it's a coincidence.
She's up against you would say, a shrill, hysterical Karen opposition leader in Jodie Mackay. And I just want to go, because she's been attacking Gladys Berejiklian in the Parliament this week. But I just want to go back a few months when everyone thought that New South Wales was going to have a second wave and go into lockdown. Of course, Jodie Mackay thought that masks should be mandated. So she asked the Health Minister, Brad Hazzard, and of course he's no great guy himself. He was the guy that accidentally said we have to treat this new world of COVID seriously, and allow.
I also love the fact that they're like, did you say he's the health minister?
Yeah.
And his surname is Hazzard.
Yeah. Oh, he was the one that allowed the Ruby Princess to dock, which Ruby Princess, 22 people associated with that cluster died. So he was the biggest mass killer before Daniel Andrews during the pandemic. So this is New South Wales Health Minister Brad Hazzard has blamed tiredness and frustration for an astonishing personal tirade aimed at Labor state Labor leader in Parliament. Mr. Hazzard called opposition leader Jodie Mackay a goose, stupid, and a complete pork chop, and made disparaging comments about her appearance and dress sense in the New South Wales Parliament on Thursday. He said Miss Mackay needed to wear a mask and went on to say, if I was sitting next to someone like you in the bus, I would definitely wear a mask. It came after Mr. Mackay had asked Mr. Hazzard whether New South Wales had enough masks stockpiled if they became compulsory to help fight the pandemic. Mr. Hazzard erupted, describing Miss Mackay as Labor's temporary leader, calling for her to resign and to be stood down. Miss Mackay again asked, do we have enough face masks? You certainly need one, Mr. Hazzard yelled in response.
Okay.
Hey, boys, my battery's nearly dead. I'm going to have to jump off in a few minutes. But you mind if we just go over a couple of things before I go?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So we have a... Hey?
Why do you all go off your phones? Andy Nock had the same thing this week, and yeah, Andy actually recommended to me that my camera might be better because obviously being in the country. Okay, well you shouldn't have listened to him. He's the one that got himself locked up for 5 months.
Well, it's not as long as I managed to get myself locked up for, so I don't know who's smarter there. But so we're trying to get a group of people together. We're calling an assembly of the people to try to hand Daniel Andrews a notice of liability in regards to the current COVID restrictions and lockdowns. It's a valid document under the Common Law Court of Australia. It's a court of public opinion, but does hold legal sway. It's obviously going to be hard to get the establishment to follow through with it. But if we look across the world, in 2015, the Common Law Court actually launched legal proceedings against the Queen and the Pope. It ended up going to a Supreme Court where they got a conviction for pedophilia. I'm sure a lot of you probably know about that. The 100-something kids went missing in 1969 when Prince and the Queen rocked up, and the kids were never seen again in Canada. So that was all started through a Common Law Court. And also it bring about the resignation of one of the lead treasurers of the Vatican, just through the pressure of the Commonwealth, the Common Law Court put on. So we'll be serving Daniel Andrews in the coming fortnight. Hopefully, we'll be serving Daniel Andrews. So we need at least 2,000 people there. 2,000 people formed a community.
Why do you need people there? Like, it's just a delivery of documents, isn't it? And plus, you'd be breaching restrictions as well.
Well, we need people there to make it. So to make it 2,000 people in the eyes of the government forms a community. So if we can get 2,000 people to form there, that the government cannot ignore us. So that's what we intend to do. We have good numbers starting to come out. We have a lot of interest. Once we make that notice, public, so we can make it public by it's a common law. So even hanging it in a library or something to get it out is made public notice. But by letting Daniel Andrews know personally, by making him acknowledge our presence, that will force him to at least look at our notice of liability and conditional release.
I doubt that he would, and the media around would probably say you're some kooks who've ambushed the Premier.
They can say that if they want to. We are working in the frame of what's legal. We have a legal team behind us who's advising us on what we can and can't do. So we're making sure we do this correctly. We'll go about it the right way. The legal team are very, very well established, and they're also, they work with politicians in this country already. Obviously I'm not going to say any names, but they're a very good group to have behind us, and they are making sure what we do is legal so that we won't get into trouble and we won't go outside the scope. But we have to remember we have a lot of powers in this country that we don't use. We have Commonwealth public official positions where we can enact powers over the people that represent us in government and also the police. These are powers and laws that we do have in this country, and we need to learn how to use them and hold these people accountable for what they're doing. So a show of force puts the government on notice. The power of the people is the government. This is a court of public opinion. So when the court of public opinion starts to sway towards the government, if you sign a petition to the government, in statistics, the government takes one signature and looks at that as 1,000. So when Daniel Andrews tried to get the omnibus bill passed last week, we had 9,000 signatures, 9,000 people petitioned the government to stop that. In the eyes of the government, that's that's 1 million people. So that's 100,000 people. Sorry, not so. If we can get 2,000 people there, and that in the eyes of the government, that's 2 million people. That's a big bloody show of force, and it'll send a shockwave through politics. We have people coming involved that are, it's not my place to name, but you will see over the coming weeks, people of high caliber names getting involved, people from outside Australia getting involved. So this is a movement that we're really going to push. There's a lot of people really going to push. I'm just an outlier, and I'm just I'm just one to talk about it and to help get the message out there. But there's people that have a lot more sway and a lot more knowledge than me that are trying to get this to the forefront and really bring about some action. Granted, the Australian government may not action it, may not act on the decision of the Common Law Court, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on Daniel Andrews to acknowledge the claims of the people. So it's we don't have many options left, Tim, and we're running out of time. So people need to do something, and this is something to do. So until we get together and we start doing things, so this is something we want people to get involved in. If they start to look around, they'll find information on this, and we want to get
There are a lot of ways that people, like you just mentioned, the omnibus bill, how people have been effective. That preventative detention clause was dropped, but I just don't see, I still don't think the symbolism of what you're trying to do, let alone the legal action you're trying to take. I just think that's that's going way too out on a limb, and there's still lots of other these lawsuits. The reason why these lawsuits are having an effect, the over the curfew and the 5K one, is because they're focused on already established thing on the common law thing that I know the Great Australian Party that they talk about a lot. It's not going to get a court to take you very seriously. I know that you think that you're right, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be taken seriously by the court. I mean, you saw how the magistrate in your initial hearing was disparaging against you.
Of course. Well, look, Daniel Andrews is going to be protected by the establishment, and the only way for this to work is for us to have more people to them. So, Tim, there's 20,000 police officers in Victoria. We outnumber that. Hopefully, people like you come to realise the power that people have, and we do actually get off our couch and start to do something, because no matter what, we're still in lockdown. You know what I mean? So whether you approve of what we were going to do or not, we're going to do something. We're still in lockdown and we're still sitting there. People are talking too much shit and no one's getting off their feet. So until someone gets off their feet and tries to do some more things, we see these mass protests in Melbourne all the time. Good on them people. They're out there. They're doing something. You know what I mean? They're not sitting in their homes. They're not talking, and they're not wearing a fucking face mask when they go down the street. These are people of action. We need to be people of action. This action may not be enforced by the Australian courts because the Australian courts are going to protect their own. But like I said, this is a court of the people, and that's how courts were established. This goes back to the Magna Carta and the establishment of the whole law system. This is how it runs.
This is my point here.
I like to focus on the big picture here, because
but the big picture is not that's not how it's always going to be still 5 years from now, the existing apparatus, and this is what Thanos, who I had on last night, is beginning to recognize, because he was one of those charged with incitement over the September 5 Freedom Day protests. So now he's channeled his energy into political lobbying and basic legal education, where knowing how to read legislation, reading drafts and that. So he's no one that just going out and trying to do something is silly. And we've seen these freedom rallies just fizzle out, and we've actually seen direct lobbying of the politicians, activist groups be much more effective. I mean, there was the Dan Andrews bus this week.
When did you start working for Dan Andrews, Tim?
I'm not.
Are you sure? Are you sure? We're trying to do. You're lobbying for Andrews. You're trying to keep people in their houses and not get them out there to make a difference. You know, that sounds like you're working for Andrews.
Well, we've got a super chat here on that matter from Senator Slayer for $3 Australian. People have been claiming that Jarrad is working for Dan Andrews as controlled opposition. Is that true?
As I was saying, I like Jarrad's approach on the big picture. We've got to recognise that the Victorian government and the Victorian legal system, the Victorian legal system is controlled by the Victorian government. And you've got to tackle this on multiple fronts. You can do the small sort of going, okay, let's go after this law, let's go after that law.
Yeah, I think his phone died there. Yeah, maybe it was Dan Andrews shutting him down.
Yeah, you can go after the small specific things, but what Jarrad's trying to do here is he's looking at the way the system is organized and saying, let's actually take the entire thing down.
Well, as I said to him, like all those Freedom Day rallies, they all fizzled out, and it's been the actions of direct lobbying groups like Reignite Democracy Australia.
This isn't a Freedom Day rally, though. It's
well, it's basically he's trying to combine what it sounded to me is he's trying to have some sort of rally, which he'll get Chief Wiggum will start to go after him over that.
It's not a rally. It's
an illegal gathering. It's not going to be legal by next week.
Yeah, but it's with a legal purpose. Like it's different to just a bunch of people getting out there and protesting. They're saying, okay, we're actually serving you with a legal notice.
Well, it has this legal notice, as I said to him, like he's not going to be taken seriously by the reason why these lawsuit, like these legal actions against Dan Andrews have been so effective is because they've got QCs and SCs who had quite significant standing. That's how you get a court to take you seriously. I mean,
so Jarrad, so while you're away, Jarrad, I was basically saying I like the fact that what you're looking at here is the bigger picture. You're looking at how the actual, like how the system is actually organized, and you're actually doing something as an attempt to challenge the system itself, rather than
100%
a law. Yeah.
100%. Look, a lot of things have been tried, and a lot of avenues have been done. The protests have been done. The legislation's been done. We need to keep trying new things, and there's a lot of avenues to try, and I think they're all good avenues,
Well, I was just talking about the lawsuits that have been lodged against Andrews before. I mean, they've hired well-established like QCs and SCs who will be taken very seriously by the court, and they're going after focusing on particular aspects of laws. I still don't know, like, what are you serving him like with exactly? What laws has he broken?
So it's a notice of liability and conditional release for the whole lockdown and COVID. So he needs to acknowledge our claims in the conditional release, and it gives him 72 hours to occur. Now,
what happens after the 72 hours? The common law courts are not is not our legal system at the moment. This is what I'm getting at here.
Of course not, Tim. Of course not. But the common law courts is power of the people. And while the people aren't involved in the common law courts going to have no power. The more people who get involved, the more power it has. Like I told you before, one person's signature is worth 1,000. If you go to the common law court and get 3 signatures, it's worth fucking 3,000. If you go to the common law court and get 15,000 signatures, that's worth something, Tim. So while you're sitting there saying people shouldn't get involved, people should get involved because we are.
I'm not saying that. You're twisting my words.
You are saying that. You're saying it's not going to work. You're a man of little faith.
Your plan. Because I've interviewed these, but there's a couple of these Know Your Rights people before and they give me all this stuff, and you're trying to basically argue that people should recognize this parallel system. You can have that view, but you're not going to get the groundswell that you think that you're going to get?
We're not trying to say that this legal system is going to take over the legal system we have at the moment. We're just trying to put more pressure on Daniel Andrews. So 2,000 people rocking up to Parliament House, putting pressure on Daniel Andrews to answer these claims is a lot of pressure. Whether you like to admit it or not, this is the action that works. This is the action that has worked throughout history, and it's the action that will work again now. Going about it the wrong way, I agree, it won't work. And this has to be well organised and carefully collaborated. More lucky we have people like Nick Patterson involved, Know Your Rights groups involved, Great Australian Party. We have people involved. Milo Yiannopoulos is supposed to be getting involved. We have these people that are helping us with this cause. So, there will be a lot of naysayers, because there always is. There are a lot of people that sit at home and don't come because that's what they do. But me, I will be out there, and I will be at the fucking front of the gate, and I will be telling them what I think. And they will be. We are the power, and we will take that back. And like I said, the common law court needs people power to back it. It's a court of the people. It's a court of public opinion. That's what it is. It may not have legal sway when it comes to arresting Daniel Andrews and putting him in handcuffs and putting him in a jail cell, granted. But it is the court of public opinion. And what wins elections? The court of public opinion. What gets people voted in? The court of public opinion. So what we need to do is win the court of public opinion, Tim. I don't know how that is so hard to recognise. This is a different way of going about it.
And there's been a lot of people that I mentioned when you're off air, all the other groups that are influencing public opinion, such as Reignite Democracy Australia, Victoria Forward, Victoria Change. There's so many different lobby groups now that are helping to. Now public opinion is against the lockdown. The Roy Morgan.
That's right. That's exactly right. So why have we got so many groups? Why don't we have one group walking towards the same thing? Why do we have 30 fucking groups when they'll have the same goal? Because everybody wants to be the cook in the kitchen. Why doesn't everybody? There doesn't have to be a leader to these groups. It doesn't have to be a movement. It doesn't have to be I'm or doing this or they're doing that. We, as a collective group, need to do something.
Well, you're basically saying people should do things your way. That's the impression that I'm getting from you.
Not at all, and this isn't my way, Tim. I didn't organise this event personally. Like, this is something that's been collaborated on by many people. It's not just my idea and I'm going out on a whim. I'm just the voice that's talking about it at the moment. So there will be other people promoting this as well. It's not just me, and it will continue to become a thing over the next few weeks. So, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, Tim. But we will try.
Well, I'm just saying that I'm incredibly skeptical of what you've told me so far.
Don't you think it could complement all of these other groups?
Sorry?
You've got to. Don't you think it could complement all these other groups? You've got to approach things from multiple angles and try to fight on a number of different battlefields.
Yeah, and it all depends about time, place, and stuff too. There's a lot of play. If you want to send a shockwave through Australian politics and wake up, there's ways of doing that. So, it's all about execution.
I know I'm getting a lot of roasts in the chat, but I've got to call things as I see it, and I just don't see how, knowing how politics operates and the media and that, how what you've told me so far is really going to have much effect beyond, say, 24 or 48 hour news cycle.
I don't know how anything anybody has done has gone between 24 and 28 hour news cycle. It's all just fucking piss and wind at the end of the day, mate.
Well, you just said that you don't watch TV.
What's that got to do with anything?
Well, you just said that none of the others have had any impact. Well, there's the omnibus bill that got the preventative detention powers dropped. That's a pretty significant victory. Which
I just mentioned was a pretty significant victory. I just told you there was 9,000 people. I don't know why you're trying to argue with me over this, Tim. Like, this is, you invite me on your show to tell me, like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, what I'm saying is that I'm not just going to give you a free plug. I'm going to push you on it.
That's great. But, at the end of the day, this needs to be done. Something needs to be done. And we can all sit there and continue to talk if we wish. But, I've had enough talking. There needs to be some action. So, yeah.
Well, it's got to be effective action. That's my point.
Of course.
And it's got to be thoroughly thought out and made sure that it's not just going to blow up and lead to the loss of freedom of the people who have decided to pursue it in that, because the
the ones who like attended those freedom days and that, none of them have. There's only a few of them who have been in the public eye, despite the fact that they got arrested and fined.
It's not about any one person being in the public eye. This is about pressure on Daniel Andrews.
And he's feeling a lot of pressure at the moment. You're not going to be the first person to make him feel the pressure. We've just been talking about Peta Credlin, the amount of pressure that she's put on Dan Andrews.
And that's great. And the more people that put pressure on him, the better.
Yeah, exactly right. But I don't think you're... I'm just saying that I don't see yours going above and beyond all the other things that have already put pressure on him.
I'm not saying we're going to go above and beyond, Tim. I'm just trying to help, That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah. All right. We'll see how it unfolds. But yeah, I just thought that I'd offer you could call it a reality bomb check.
Okay, granted.
You'll think about what I said?
I'll think about you, Tim, but I don't know about what you said. You could definitely work for Channel 7, mate. You could definitely go for the mainstream media after this interview. You're definitely doing their job quite well. So as long as we get more people cucking like Tim, we'll be right. Don't worry about that.
Jarrad, I've got to say, I'm looking forward to reading the thing that you sent through to me on. I've had a bit of busy few days, but I'm looking forward to reading it and putting it up.
Thank you, Dave. Hope you enjoy it.
I'm much more pleasant and I would say direct with you than Channel 7 would be.
Yeah, well, maybe.
But let's have a look at this poll now. I hope that everyone enjoyed that back and forth, because people say that there's not enough conflict on the Uncuckables. So Roy Morgan polling had pretty much found until recently that Victorians supported all the stage 4 restrictions, but majority now want it scrapped. So first question, should Melbourne residents be able to visit the homes of immediate family members? And it has the author out there. So 73% yes, 27% say no. I wonder those people who said no, how much longer are they prepared to stay locked down for? And if we go down to the second question, should Melbourne restaurants, hotels, clubs be allowed to provide table service for proper social distancing? 62% yes, 38% no. So I wonder for those 38%, well, how much longer do you want to be in lockdown for? And question number 3, should Melbourne residents now be free to travel more than 5 k's from their home? 72% say yes, 28% no. So there's obviously 28% of people who love their 5-kilometre bubble. And question 4, if a new coronavirus vaccine becomes publicly available, would you be willing to be vaccinated? 85% say yes, 15% say no.
And that's where the whole poll is leading, isn't it? So like what we're seeing here, we know that people are getting sick of the lockdowns, but the whole point of the lockdowns has been in order to program us to take this vaccine.
And the masks as well, because
yes, but the masks is something like, yes, the mask is a form of social programming, like wearing a mask. It's a muzzle. It's submission to the government. But the vaccine is the thing that could do permanent damage to you. And that's what we're being conditioned to basically beg for. Like they're giving us the choice. You can either
we're being beaten down to because
stay in prison or you take the vaccine. That's what they're trying to install it.
And what was it? Gideon Rosner from the IPA, he's also been an effective campaigner against the lockdown. He's basically saying, yes, I'd give my arm to be able to go to the pub. That was his view on it.
I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous. Yeah.
We're being told that the vaccine by the Australian government will be free or voluntary. We still don't know how much of the population will need to be vaccinated for so-called herd immunity, how much dose, how often you'll need to be vaccinated, because they're all in stage 3 clinical trials. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was halted this week. don't Johnson and Johnson's, don't they make, what is it, baby powder and baby wipes? Yet they're testing a vaccine. So, Jarrad, if you need to buy baby supplies, don't buy Johnson and Johnson.
No, I won't, mate. I only buy organic. All right, boys, I gotta go. I got an early start tomorrow.
Cheers, Jarrad.
All right,
see ya.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
So Tim, can we just return to the Gladys story? Because we were building to the point of the story.
I want to finish off the super chats here. I don't think Jarrad heard the Senator Slayer's super chat because he accused Dan Andrews of being controlled opposition. Maybe he's operating a honeypot trap, so Dan can sort of when Jarrad and his minions are in, it's like, all right, boys, come in with the vans.
I'm convinced we are, aren't we? We're still allowed on here. Yeah.
What is that? James Fox Higgins, his interview with Mark Collette got taken down this week, even though it aired, 6 months ago? It's like how Richard Walsacroft's interview with Fraser Anning mysteriously, even though it'd been up for 18 months, got deleted for hate speech.
Yep. Yeah, they're just gradually bringing it all down. Yeah, let's just return.
Oh wait, I still got to get through these super chats.
Yeah, okay, sure.
So another one from Senator Slayer for $3 Australian. I'm tired people bullying Tim for being a ladies' man. That's his personal life. Oh my god, the internet can be mean. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are fascinated with my personal life. It's quite strange. It's they want to know everything about you.
Yes.
And of course, Senator Slayer is making a super chat about my personal life, telling people not to go on about my personal life. And we've got one from Antonia Kingsley. Always interesting to hear real news from Oz. Thank you all. Thank you, Antonia Kingsley. But yes, you wanted to keep going about the Gladys story.
Yeah. So we were basically sort of discussing the issues, which, like I could have gone on about a few things in the article that I made, but I wanted just to drive directly to the point, because basically the whole thing is being painted as a bit of a sex scandal. The poor woman, she made a terrible choice, but that's not the issue here. Like when you look at what Maguire has actually done, like the reason he's actually in trouble, he was selling visas for cash. So this gets to the heart of like the betrayal of the Australian people, full stop. The Liberal Party is supposed to be the party that people elect to be conservative and to actually stand up for real Australians and to actually hold the world at bay. Yet the Liberal Party supports mass immigration just as much as the Labor Party, and this guy, all this guy has done is basically found a way to profit from it just a little bit more. So it's kind of like it's a symbol of just the betrayal of Australia by both political parties, and that's the real scandal of what's actually going on here. Like the way that the media can all just focus on this supposed love story or love affair, and whether it was appropriate or not. That's not the issue. Like the issue is you've got both parties screwing over Australians.
Well, sex and politics, that's the ultimate story. And because, the perception seems to be, as I was alluding to before, that Gladys, she's married to the people. She seems to basically have this halo around her head because she saved the Australian economy by keeping New South Wales open. Her state's contact tracing capabilities have made sure that these clusters have not got out of control. So basically the narrative, or I wouldn't say narrative, but the reaction from the public has been narrative. Has been come on, give her a break. She's done a pretty good job. She shouldn't have to resign over this, especially when still Dan Andrews has his job.
They're responding to the narrative. that they're fed. And this is why XYZ exists, to say, look, like, this is what you're actually being fed, but this is actually the real issue. A similar thing has gone on with the Epstein story. I find it intriguing that the parallels here, because that's been painted as a bit of a sex scandal, and there's even been the attempts to sort of portray Ghislaine Maxwell, who was basically Epstein's.
I don't buy that
guardian.
at all.
They've attempted to portray Ghislaine Maxwell as sort of like his victim, they've just basically sort of tried to shoehorn this into the Me Too movement as well. But the fact is that Epstein was running a racket, a blackmail racket for Mossad. He was basically one of the entry points for people to become part of the elite. Like, if you want power, you let these people get something over you so that they can control you. But once again, the media has just been able to deflect the story away from that key point. And there's similar things going on here with the Berejiklian story. Like, the real story is that the Labour Party, the Liberal Party, have been screwing over Australians with mass immigration for decades. And here's a guy who has found a way to actually profit from that screwing over. But they've deflected the story to just be all about the scandal, all about the sex scandal.
Well, the fact that Jodie Mackay, to use the words of Brad Hazard, she has again been carrying on like a pork chop in the New South Wales Parliament, because question time between her and Gladys Berejiklian is being aired all week, and she just talks over the top of Gladys Berejiklian all the time. The speaker gets very terse with her, and a big factor in, I think, Jodie Mackay's lack of cut through, and she just comes across as just this Karen, is because her unofficial communications manager is Friendly Geordies. He did a sit-down interview with her. He's also done a sit-down interview with Kevin Rudd, who's trying to get that.
Check it out. He's got the soy face going.
Yeah. Well, he used to be, what is a male model. That was his life before YouTubing. And yeah, he takes his clothes off as much as possible in his videos to get views. So he's interviewed Jodie Mackay. He's interviewed, as I said, Kevin Rudd. Christina Keneally. I think Christina Keneally should be called out for giving a platform to, well, I'll get to what he's done this week. And also Tanya Pliberspeck sat down with him. But this week...
It's intriguing that he's, as you were saying, he's basically turned out to be a Labour shill.
Yeah. And this week he appeared in a Chinese Communist Party propaganda documentary criticizing the Australian Strategic Policy Institute for their anti-China bias. And he also said on a recent podcast, his real name is Jordan Sanks. He said in recent days, after recent comments that he made about Uyghurs, a Turkic-speaking Muslim ethnic group, more than 1 million of whom have been contained in internment camps in China's West in recent years. The reason the Uyghur population is detained is because they're causing trouble, and that is actually the reason.
He's not wrong about everything, and neither are the Chinese.
But he's basically dismissing concentration camps, like sort of implying that, oh yeah, that's why China is doing it. It's no big deal.
Well, it's something that Australia should. We could probably learn a thing or two from how they're dealing with that. If you want to ensure that you have a homogenous society, or at least to have a dominant ethnic group.
Well, China is full of heaps of different ethnic groups.
To you. Yeah, but that's why I followed up with if you want to at least have a dominant ethnic group and a dominant ideology, you make it clear to the ones who could cause trouble. If you cause trouble, this is how we're going to treat you. Essentially, at the moment in Australia, this is how white people and white people who are nationalists are treated. We're put in a kind of digital concentration camp, and there's always that sort of threat being sort of held over our heads. So
you wouldn't do even though
all we're looking at here is this is how you. This is if you want to keep power. This is how you keep power.
Well, even though you seem to be agreeing with Friendly Geordies here, if he got his way, Christina Keneally would be the Home Affairs Minister of Australia, and God knows what she'd do to people like us, given that what she said about us.
And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Like the Australian government is treating its own people in the way that the Chinese government is treating the Uyghurs. Like at least the Chinese government looks out for its own people.
Except China is not, even though it is one country, it's full up of heaps of ethnic groups. I mean, they write about what they do to the Tibetans as well, because the Tibetans wouldn't consider themselves Chinese.
Yes, but you don't see the Chinese government all of a sudden turning around and going, okay, the majority Chinese ethnic group, we're going to discriminate against you and bring in mass immigration to replace you. You know, that's the
no, but I think that. Well, it would probably be better for the rest of the geopolitical balance if basically just China was, you could say, it went the same way as Yugoslavia, yes, and they just had all of these independent ethnic Chinese states based on all the different ethnic groups.
Absolutely. China are basically taking this same approach to geopolitical security as Russia is. Like they understand the idea that if you want to protect your core territory, you have buffer zones. Russia has its former republics on its outskirts, and it's got Eastern Europe. I think it still wants to see Poland as a buffer zone. So yeah, that's what these other parts of China are. The Western territories and Tibet, that's their buffer zone. That's all they're doing. But yeah, it would be quite beautiful to see China break up in our lifetimes. But you can guarantee it wouldn't be pleasant, but it'd be definitely exciting. It'd be interesting times.
I know that myself and Jarrad had a back and forth on legal theories and understandings about the law in Australia, but you don't have to be a lawyer. You just have to read Section 91 of the Australian Constitution to know that given what the Chief Health Officer of Western Australia confessed this week, that Mark Gowan is violating Section 91 by denying interstate travel, commerce, and intercourse, because the Chief Health Officer said that it was not based on health advice. Chief Health Officer of Western Australia said, no, the hard border closure is not based on health advice.
It's based on their orders from the World Bank. What?
Mark McGowan has said he wants to keep Western Australian money in Western Australia. That's what he's said. And Clive Palmer's High Court challenge.
Nationalist, huh? He's a parade.
Yes, but he still wants to be part of Australia for some reason.
I don't know who to support. It's because I don't mind the idea of border closures. Clive Palmer, his High Court challenge is due in November, and based on what we've found out this week from both Mark McGowan and the local Chief Health Officer, he's clearly in breach of the Constitution and he's toast. Yeah, good.
So why do you pour water? Are you
pouring water? I'm trying to trigger our favorite guest.
You sometimes drink red wine as well. That was one of Daryl Maguire's. You sometimes drink red wine though.
It's the blood of my enemies, Tim.
Yeah, Daryl Maguire. That was one of his codes. Would you like a glass of red? If you've been following the ICAC when he was. Yeah,
I'm just like, okay, he was selling cash for visas. That's the real scandal.
Yeah. Well, when you're drinking red, it's code for you drinking blood.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, is on the topic of borders, we are Australia's, what do you call it, Fortress Australia is going to remain this way. Scott Morrison has said Australians won't be allowed overseas for the foreseeable future and refuses to put a date on travel bubbles with any safe countries. Since 17th of March this year, Australians have been banned from leaving the country. Ban is in place until 17th of December and be extended beyond that date. He's working on travel bubbles with Japan and South Korea.
Okay, yeah. Again, I've got no trouble with closing the borders of Australia. It's quite a beautiful thing.
All right, let's go over to the US now. And Amy Coney Barrett has been before the Senate Judiciary Committee being asked about what's their various legal views on all of these social issues. But the gold medal for stupid comes of stupid questions to her.
Yes, I am. That's all right.
Yeah, is Democrat Senator for Hawaii, Mazie Hirono. I'd never heard of her. That's her. I think she looks, what is it, Japanese or something? That's a Japanese name.
There are a lot of them there.
Yeah. So who really won the Battle of Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Who really won World War II? Did we? You know, we've you win a war, but then your people get replaced. That's the consequences of loss generally.
So this is from the Gateway Pundit. There's stupid, and then there's Democrat Senator Mazie Hirono. Hirono on Tuesday asked Amy Coney Barrett if she had ever committed rape. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted sexual requests for sexual favors, committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature? Hirono said.
Oh, let's go into bat for Hirono. Like, so, this is a show for blokes, and part of that is you know, like we give a lot of credit to the manosphere here. If women want to be treated the same as men, they should be under the same kind of suspicion as men. And B, we understand that violence against men by women, and even rape against men by women, is a vastly underreported crime. So it's actually not as stupid as they're trying to paint here. I am being a little bit of a devil's advocate, but only a tiny amount.
I see your point, but there's got to be some sort of because obviously with Kavanaugh there were those made up accusations. There are also with
yes, and I've also and we've sort of pointed out that the reason Donald Trump chose a woman is because it would be the easiest short-term choice. Like he's chosen her because
he's replacing a woman with a woman. I know that Adam Piggott, in his usual style, wrote for the XYZ. Amy Barrett is a diversity hire, and
she is. There. Like, have a look at that photo. If you scroll up,
which one?
It is a bit of a so that one first of all. So it is a little bit of a red flag. So there she's holding what appears to be a little African girl, and there's another African girl down there.
Oh, they're Haitis.
Okay, well, African. But now, like, there's an African boy with an African girl. So I don't know if, like, the earlier pic was supposed
They're all our children.
Yes, but do you notice that, like, the little girl seems to have transformed into a boy?
Well, that's probably they might not be their children. These are just two photos next to each other.
Well, the one on the left looks like she's grown into the girl on the left, to the young woman on the left.
So what you're saying that girl here became that boy?
It's possible. There could be a perfectly reasonable explanation for it as well. But regardless, don't expect this woman to be a conservative. And as she's as well.
Yeah, she's basically said, the Supreme Court's already decided same-sex marriage through Obergefell versus Hodges, and that I'm basically not going to overturn any precedent that the Supreme Court has already made. That's basically what she said. So she basically cucked before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Yes. So, like, Donald Trump has chosen a woman because he figures it'll be easy to get her through, because like, it'll be harder for the left to sort of come up with all these fake rape claims. But as Adam Pickett pointed out, look, don't expect her to actually be our woman, and like, already she's cucking.
Yeah, and if you look at, well, at least Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, he's made a few what you'd say socially or judicial activist decisions by claiming that, what is it, discrimination on the basis of sex also covered sexual orientation, which is news to me. And also Chief Justice John Roberts, he was appointed by George W. Bush. He's basically become a liberal justice now.
Yeah, it's really intriguing. Like, there's the idea that, like, control of the presidency means that you can basically control the bias of the Supreme Court, and thus shape the United States for generations to come. That's just gone completely out the window, because these judges who they pick supposedly as conservatives, just go turncoat.
Now let's talk about the smoking gun story about the Bidens, which Facebook and Twitter tried to hide today, not very well. Biden's secret emails. So this is the New York Post.
Going on, but this wasn't
Ukrainian exec thank Hunter Biden for the opportunity to meet Vic Dad. And basically, Hunter Biden, he dropped off his laptop at this repair shop and didn't pick it up. And so after 90 days, it becomes the legal property of the person who he dropped it off to, and realized that there are all these sensitive documents and emails on there, gave it to the FBI and the New York Post. And the reason that Twitter and Facebook, they decided to censor it is because they've said they won't publish hacked information, i.e. because WikiLeaks damaged Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. Even though this was not hacked, apparently the laws of basically finders keepers, Facebook and Twitter decided that they, of course, Facebook and Twitter, their laws are superior to any actual laws, and their facts are superior to any other fact. And so Jack Dorsey has said that it was unacceptable that the social media giant blocked users from sharing a post expose about Hunter Biden's emails. And so he said, our communication around our actions and the NY Post article was not great, and blocking a URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking unacceptable, because they actually locked the New York Post's Twitter account.
So they're the new Daily Stormer, huh?
But how did the media get a hold of Trump's tax returns? Would that? Yeah. I doubt that Trump volunteered them.
We've been pointing out the hypocrisy of the media and the social media giants for years.
And Facebook and Twitter, they're basically saying that any leaked information we're not going to publish. So the Pentagon Papers, Facebook and Twitter wouldn't have published those.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's all very convenient for them. The principle for them is, does it harm our enemies? And their enemies are us. Their enemies are white people. Their enemies are freedom-loving people. Their enemies are basically everybody. This is about humanity versus the elite, and the elite have control of the communication, and they're doing their best to control what we are allowed to see.
And on that computer, Hunter Biden kept some pretty compromising photos of himself. We already knew he was a junkie, but there's actually photographic evidence of it. Here's him with it looks like a crack pipe in his mouth.
All right. Well, that's not surprising. Huh? Yeah, but we know what these people are like. They're degenerates. It's what I was alluding to before. Like, the way to gain access to power is to allow the people who do hold power to have something over you, so that they can control you. And so, drug addicts are they're perfect for the elite, because it's easier to control somebody who's already controlled, who doesn't have control of themselves. Yeah.
And late last week as well, we had Nancy Pelosi get up. Bieber has, I think it was him who, oh no, it was, oh yes, here it is, here. Yeah, Ern Malley, they'll get rid of Biden after he's elected, if not, because Nancy Pelosi with their 25th Amendment committee to basically that the Congress, with the permission of the vice president, can get rid of the president. And everyone thinks that's going to be applied to Trump. No, it's for Biden when he gets elected, if he gets elected.
Astute,
and so they can, get Kamala Harris in.
Yes, that's very astute. Absolutely. But yeah, absolutely. Because once he's elected, they'll stop giving him a free ride, and they'll stop. They'll turn the radar off for him. Yeah. The guy thinks he's running for the Senate, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and I can't believe that Nancy Pelosi, she gave that press conference with still her mask on, even though Dan takes his mask off to give his press conference. And of course, we all know that Nancy Pelosi wears the mask for show because she was busted visiting that hair salon without a mask. So she's basically overcompensating now. Not only am I going to wear a mask around Congress, even when I'm speaking.
Yeah, well, technically, if you're by yourself, you're within 1.5 meters of somebody, so maybe you should be wearing a mask at all times.
Although she probably would argue, because Trump got coronavirus, the Congress will be on high alert. But Trump he's now recovered and he's back hosting rallies now, which it didn't turn out the way that the press pack, I would say, not thought but hoped.
Yeah, well, this is the situation where I think the left's conspiracy theories are probably close to the mark. I think this could well be a case of 4D chess. It's been very convenient for Donald Trump to get coronavirus, to get over it very quickly, and to be able to get back to work. And it's been tremendous optics. Either he got it and he's just BTFO'd it, or the whole thing was a setup and they've said, look, we've got to find a way to just destroy this narrative that the globalists are trying to push on everybody. Either way, like what Trump has done with that has been very, very good. And if it was all a conspiracy theory, I say, well done.
Well, let's finish off by looking at England's new corona tier lockdown system, which, it's not as bad as Victoria. So medium is follow the rule of 6 if meeting indoors and outdoors. Pubs and restaurants to shut at 10 p.m. High means no household mixing indoors. Rule of 6 apply outdoors. Pubs and restaurants to shut at 10 p.m. Very high. No household mixing indoor, outdoors, in hospitality venues or private gardens. So they still have hospitality venues open, but you can only go there with your household. You can't see anyone else, which sort of, doesn't that defeat the purpose of why you go to a hospitality venue?
Yes. And so this whole color coding, it's about normalizing the lockdown. It's about normalizing.
Well, it's another like the terror alert system,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And just like the terror alert system, don't ever expect this Chinese diversity flu color coding system to go away. This is with us forever.
Until there's a vaccine.
Even then. There could be a vaccine, and then there'll be another one.
There'll always be new viruses.
Yeah, and very conveniently so.
Pubs
don't expect this lockdown to ever go away, even if there is a vaccine.
Pubs and bars not serving meals will be closed. Guidance against travelling in and out of the area. So still not as bad as the Melbourne lockdown. And
yeah, they're building to it though.
Yeah, Dan in his daily press conference sort of said, yes, the lockdown might now be doing more harm than good in terms of mental health and that. So sort of that's his sort of softening thing. Like, yeah, it's sort of dragged on for too long, and yeah, we might need to redo the roadmap with 10 being the new 5 and 5 being the new 0 to get to COVID normal.
Yeah, it's intriguing. It sounds like a walk back, doesn't it? Yeah.
But we'll see what he announces on Sunday, because, you know, set your expectations very low, I would say. So therefore, you won't be disappointed. And if it's better bad news, then you can be a bit happier. But you'll still need to wear your muzzle when you go outside. I wonder if the helicopters and planes and all that other stuff will still be on.
Yeah, don't be surprised. Like I said, like that they normalize it and then it just stays with you, just like all the terror stuff.
Oh, thanks again, Dave, for being my co-host. You can check out Dave at some other Australian alt media website.
Yeah, come to www.xyz.net.au. The website that's so dangerous, nobody will mention it. Nobody in the Australian media will mention it at all. It's amazing.
And of course, you can find me at the Unshackled.net. That's where you can find all the archives of Unshackled Productions, and also our various articles and essays. Tomorrow night, there'll be a special Wilms front at 7 p.m. Melbourne time. Returning to the show will be Unshackled contributor and Antifa hitman Lucas Roses, because he's been writing about the Sydney and Sydney University and University of Queensland Marxists who've been protesting. And well, in the University of Sydney, they've actually been arrested and fined for breaching coronavirus restrictions. I'm sort of conflicted on that, because yeah, I don't support the restrictions, but I do like it when the police handcuff Antifa communists.
Come over to the dark side and just enjoy it, Tim. I'm trying to, you know, that's where I was going with the whole, you know, talking up China's policy of oppressing the Uyghurs. You know, you just go with it.
Yeah, and the Marxists at UQ, they threw tomatoes at Scott Morrison's federal police car. That's how brazen they were. And we'll also talk about, with Lucas, the Kevin Rudd's demand for a royal commission into the Murdoch media, because Kevin Rudd's long had Murdoch derangement syndrome.
Murdoch, one of my favorite. They are my favorite YouTubers.
I think Kevin Rudd, he's just, when he sleeps, it's like, Murdoch, I'd still be prime minister if it weren't for Murdoch. And you can guarantee that Daniel Andrews, when he's not premier, he'll just say, and I would have, you know, gotten away with it all if it wasn't for that damn Murdoch.
Yeah, I actually I did mention a little bit of that in the piece that I wrote, because the Guardian has come out basically this week and basically admitted that they're writing so-called progressive propaganda. They've basically admitted it, but you know, it's okay for them to do that.
Yeah, but if there's one major corporate centre-right outlet, that's too many.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's where they're going with this. Yeah. Even the controlled opposition.
And also on Saturday evening, 5 p.m. Melbourne time, special Trad Tasman Talk New Zealand election night special. That's why there's no Trad Tasman Talk tomorrow night. It'll be a special Saturday night live stream. All the polls indicate that Jacinta Ardern will be re-elected. Most of the pundits are saying it'll either be she'll get an absolute majority, or she'll have to go in a coalition with the Greens. A New Zealand First, Winston Peters, he looks like his party will be punted from the parliament. The real winners of the election look like being the Libertarian ACT Party. They're polling at around 8%. They've only got their one MP at the moment, David Seymour, but they'll get a whole lot more, and that's down to him, actually being a good libertarian by standing up for free speech after the Christchurch massacre, and also standing up for freedom during the coronavirus lockdown. Who knew when libertarians actually support liberty and freedom policies, they become popular?
They could learn a little bit from that. Yeah.
All right, good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Cool.
We'll see you this time next week.
The Uncuckables.